Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer. He's on the East Coast. And we've got NBA playoff basketball on a Saturday here. Two games that we're looking at that as we continue to roll on. We've got the Mavs and the Thunder. They're going to be in Dallas. That's game one, actually. And then in Cleveland, we got those Cavs hosting now. The Celtics 1-1 in that series. I think these Celtics fans are shaking in their boots a little bit, but we'll see how game three goes. We've got best bets up in this video. Also have player props in a separate episode, bringing you both of those every day now moving forward throughout this postseason. So subscribe to that page, continue to follow along with us, and then also head to thelines.com. Use everything that we have up on the site right now as you're making these picks in the NBA postseason. Nate, let's go ahead and get right into your first best bet here. We'll start with that game in Dallas.
And I'm not taking the bait on that Celtics being afraid of the Cavs at this point. No, I'm starting with the early game here on Saturday. Dallas OKC over in the third quarter, please. Over 52.5. Originally looking at game totals here, but as we just saw, like things can happen, can get kind of unravel out of control in the second and third quarter in the playoffs, and you can still bet the under. Like you could have gotten a live 242 on that Pacers-Knicks game, which did not actually hit the 222 original total, despite being on projection for 240, because the projection, the algorithms that the books are going to throw out there do not account for how tight people get in the fourth quarter, how tired they get, and how much slower the pace gets. But I mean, even with these teams, I still think that the fourth quarter will be high scoring because it's pretty easy for the stars on both sides. Like, let's be honest, there's not a good matchup for Shea in particular. I mean, Kairuka, they're doing a pretty good job on those guys, the Thunder, and they have some good bodies to throw at them, but they're making a calculated decision to just leave these Dallas role players open, right? And they got burned by that in game two. As we know, PJ and THJ combined 9 for 15, 12 for 20 if you include your boy Josh Green. And I mean, that's by design, right? I mean, OKC, didn't they allow the most corner threes in the league this year? They've allowed the most threes in the playoffs thus far, and Dallas is only shooting 32%. Dallas has allowed 13 open threes to OKC, and they're only shooting 31%. OKC led the NBA in three-point shooting this year at 39%. So, like, there's room for this regression to go up in terms of the shooting in general. And then you have the trigger man in Shai, who's just not going to be stopped. Like, I mean, Derek Jones Jr. was not the initial answer. Now it's PJ, JB Smoove. I don't care who you put on him. He's getting into the lane. He's making voters pay for not giving him that MVP, whatever. I mean, he's leading this team at this point, and I can go into that later in player props because, I mean, he should stay hot. But, I mean, I talked about this ahead of game one where we took a third quarter over. It barely got there, but it was based on the fact that both these teams played extremely fast all regular season right out of halftime in the third and had an incredible offensive rating. I mean, OKC was a little bit higher in terms of offense at home, but their defense was also better, and their defense worse on the road. Dallas very good at home in the third quarter in particular, and they've scored 31 points per game, topping this in 4 straight playoff games right now in the third. That includes that gross series with the Clippers where nobody could score at times. OKC, even though they were shutting down the Pelicans, they've gone over in 5 of 6 this total in the third quarter. And on the season, they're both top 10 in third quarter points, both given up about 28, 29. OKC gives up 29 on the road, 26 at home. So, I mean, the splits indicate that they should come out firing here right after halftime. The early start maybe gives you a little bit of a lean towards the under for the game, if possible. I mean, I would watch that live line once again because this is something you can see in the playoffs when it starts to get crazy. It's like, well, maybe I'll still bank on things slowing down at some point.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, even if it is Indiana and New York, like you're saying, then it's a consistent, I think, play in the playoffs, and it's almost like what we're saying in general when we go with like Q4 unders, right? When we go with fourth quarter unders, it's a similar concept of like when we saw 41 points in this game in the fourth quarter of this last one. Still went over, by the way, and over the number that we have here at 218 and a half, but I'm actually going to go and just take the Thunder to cover here. I know it's not that much, and honestly, if you look at a lot of the numbers, I believe it's more profitable to just bet the money line every time when you have an underdog inside of 5. It's actually better to just take the money line, but I'll still take the 3.5 points. I think we're still waiting on a close game in this series, and honestly, don't even know if we'll find one, to be just because of the sort of variance with that Dallas 3-point shot. But I would also say that like the variance from this last game, and one of the reasons I'm playing Oklahoma City is just like what happened last game. Let's go the opposite. Like it's all got to come back at some point. And this Dallas team shot out of its mind, even for itself, right? It was like 46% from 3 in this last game, and from the field as well. Actually, it was 48%. From the field was 46%. I obviously would normally mix up those numbers because who shoots better from 3 than they do from deep? Well, a team that's shooting that many threes in general, when it's that high of a percentage of your shots, then it's likely that you're going to go ahead and take them, right? It was 37 of their 90 field goal attempts in the game were from deep, and they made 18 of them. And that is a very nice percentage. They basically shot 50% from deep. I just don't plan on that happening again. OKC, as you mentioned, is the team with the better 3-point percentage on the season, but both these teams do play in that style. It's not necessarily the same like exact style, but threes are a very important part of each of their offenses. And OKC's regression down to 30% from deep on 10 of 30 shooting, part of that also is going to be like they did kind of eventually give up in that fourth quarter. So there was a few less minutes, but still is pretty good sample size. And I think the other concept here was like, for Chet, like I think he needs to be a lot more like he was in game 1, albeit obviously it's obvious because he had 19 points in game 1, but there was a little bit less aggression there. And what happens when he does that and is able to, obviously 1 for 6 from deep is going to help Daniel Gafford stay close to the rim. And that was a big part of what I saw as well, was that like when Chet was able to pull guys from the rim in game 1 because they actually had to respect what was going on, took 16 shots, he didn't lose his confidence, and that kept guys like Daniel Gafford from being able to play that easy defense that they can just play free safety a little bit more and be able to protect the rim better. And that's why you saw a few less shots inside the paint as well for this Thunder team. So it's a pretty big cause and effect for Chet. That's kind of why I singled him out, because I think he needs to be better. Even if he's not making that many shots, then stop shooting the threes, be aggressive, pull Daniel Gafford away, or at least like charge him to the basket. If you get blocked, hopefully you have guys behind you running in to get that, or catching your stuff off the glass, that kind of stuff. But you got to get stuff going to the basket more, because that will also then open up the threes for that OKC team.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, I still like OKC in the series because of what you mentioned. Like, if Dallas doesn't have a great game shooting the basketball, there's almost no way they can win. And I mean, as soon as Dagnall just gives up on Josh Giddey, OKC is going to be rolling out lineups that are a lot harder to deal with. We mentioned that they've gotten 13 open threes per game and only shot 30%. And there's some Giddey in there, and bricking the shot, and then just immediately getting benched. And their net rating is just incredible when they don't have him on the floor. Somehow minus 20 in 11 minutes in game 2, which is hard to do. Quite impressive, Mr. Giddey. Yeah, moving on to the Celtics, though. Oh, I did want to mention, though, like if I like the Thunder in this series, bet OKC in Minnesota to meet in the next series. Also bet Western Conference, again, doubled down on that. Western Conference is plus money to win, to beat the Celtics expectedly. And the Northwest Division is plus 155, which gives you every Western Conference team except Dallas. So, like, I mean, you might as well bet that and not the Western Conference at this point, because I'm still not sold on the Celtics as a championship team if Porzingis does not come back healthy. But we're just talking about game 3 here. I'll stay focused, and what I want is Donnie Mitchell as the top scorer in this game at plus 105. FanDuel. It's something that has happened in a 25-point loss and a 25-point win so far in this series, which tells you pretty much everything you need to know, is that the Celtics are just so balanced that it's very unlikely that they're going to have a guy who scores more than somebody who's accounted for a 68%. Let me do this math. Yeah, 65% usage plus assist rate in his last 4 games. So basically everything the Cavs do has to go through Donnie. And he's been fabulous. I mean, 38 points per game in these last 4 against some of the best defenses in the league. Cooking Drew Holiday, who, giving me some flashbacks in that last game to Jimmy Butler cooking Drew Holiday and wondering, maybe Drew's getting a little old here, no longer the best one-on-one defender. But in the regular season, Donnie shot 50% and 64% on twos against Drew, and with KP there at the back line. This Al Horford starting situation is certainly bad news. I mean, at 38 years old, it makes me like Evan Mobley as well. So, I mean, throwing out a second pick here is Donnie to at least get 25, Mobley to get a double-double, even odds there. I mean, Al Horford at 38, Luke Cornett is kind of all elbows and knees. And I mean, they went to Xavier Tillman, and it wasn't because I was saying like, maybe it's like, he's going to get a little like victory time. It was like, no, we actually need an answer here for Evan Mobley, who suddenly found himself and is aggressive, and it fits into the spacing because Jared Allen's not there. And it's, those pieces did not fit. And now he's not in there, and Mobley can be a really good new age 5, both ends. Like it's going to be tough for these Celtics to deal with him on either end, especially if he's aggressive. His usage rate is up to 22% after only 12% in the last 2 against Orlando without JA. And as we know, he's putting up big numbers. I mean, he had a playoff career high 19 in 3 quarters and didn't even need to score in the fourth because the Celtics were not in the game. But so I think, the rebound chances are through the roof with Mobley. 10 points is not that much. And then Donnie to score 25 is light work.
Yeah, I think Donnie's good for 25. But I'll just go right into my bet and tell you that I'm still not afraid of Donovan Mitchell as the dude who's just going to like win the series for the Cavs. But I'm not saying you said that, but I don't think there needs to be as much panic about the Celtics squad. And I'm taking them in the first half. Like, it got down to 4.5. This was 8.5 2 games ago. They have a bad game last game. That happens. I think this is a wonderful, wonderful overreaction that helps us get 4.5 points on in the first half for the spread for this Celtics squad, where like I've talked about it already. They're a historically good first half team. If you include the playoffs now, they're 65 and 24 in first half, covering the first half spread. They're just failing to do it twice now in the postseason. And guess what? It was both game 2s. So we've seen this script before where they came back and they were up by 24 points in game 3 against the Heat after losing that game 2, where the Heat just shot out of their mind from deep. I would argue that the Cavs shot out of their mind from deep as well in this last game, especially over the course of the first half too. It was pretty nuts. But then that third quarter was pretty wild as well, to be honest, in the way that they were hitting all those threes. I believe the percentage ended up being for the first half, it was up at about like 62%. So I'm not going to bank on that happening for this Cavs team consistently. That's the first thing, and I don't know, was that the third thing I'm actually saying? But then if you look at the whole the whole playoffs as in the first half for the Celtics team so far, 13 in the first half in the postseason, even being down in this first half last game, and then won by 7.7 on the season. I've said that as well. So I just think this is a wonderful moment in time to get like buy low, because this 4.5 probably won't be there by game 4, especially if this is like an 8 to 10 point lead for the Celtics at the half of game 3 here.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good look, honestly, because I think the Cavs have been so bad offensively in the first half of most games, even not great at points in game 2 there, where they did turn it on late, and it was just that giveaway game for the Celtics. But like against Orlando, like some of those first halves were unsightly for sure. So for the Celtics to do what they did against Miami and just shut them down, held them to 40 points per game after giving up away game 2. Like that, I mean, Celtics team total 56.5 in the first half kind of covers you in case Donnie continues to just be unstoppable, because that has really opened things up. I mean, like the Celtics were kind of panicky trying to deal with him in that second half. So I don't know if the Cavs offense is going to continue that high that they're on, but I know the Celtics are going to bounce back. I just don't know about individual players, but we can get into that with player props when you get on that later.
Yeah, for sure. That's all the time we have for you, though, in Best Bets. Continue to follow along. Subscribe to that page if you would. We also have player props up, as Nate mentioned, in a separate episode. So until we see you next, happy betting.